We, of course, have been discussing the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk that has stunned millions of Americans all across both the political and spiritual spectrum. And while the condemnation of this shooting has certainly been widespread, and thankfully it's come from both sides of the aisle, but nonetheless, we would be amiss not to note and underscore what fuels terrible actions like what took place yesterday. In a Facebook post, the Southern Poverty Law Center stated this: "We condemn the shooting of Charlie Kirk and all violence in any form. Our history shows violence only fuels division." All right, well, that's fine, but you know what fuels violence? Is hatred. That's what the scripture says, and Tony brought that up. If you hate in your heart even, angry, it leads to hatred, and hatred leads to violence. So when organizations like the SPLC add organizations like Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA on their hate map, look, the SPLC then becomes not part of the solution, but part of the problem. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Tyler O'Neill. He's a senior editor at the Daily Signal and author of Making Hate Pay: The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Tyler, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's an honor to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Jody.
All right. Look, we don't yet know what motivation or what inspired the assassin yesterday. But we do know that the SPLC's so-called hate map certainly seems to have fueled violence. FRC ourselves was a target of a mass shooting some 13 years ago as a result, frankly, of being added to SPLC's hate list around that time. So Charlie Kirk's organization was also added to the SPLC's hate list just a few months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I was the first one to notice and report on Turning Point USA, the largest conservative grassroots youth organization in the country, being put on the hate map with chapters of the Ku Klux Klan. And as you noted, this map has inspired violence directly in that case of the shooting at the Family Research Council. You had a man come into the building with a semi-automatic handgun and a bag of Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches, and he told the FBI he intended to shoot everyone in the building and smear a Chick-fil-A sandwich in their faces. The SPLC condemned the attack, but kept the Family Research Council on the map ever since. Notably, also the SPLC had repeatedly attacked Steve Scalise, who was the House Majority Whip, when a man opened fire at the congressional baseball game practice and almost took the life of Steve Scalise. This man had liked the SPLC on Facebook. Of course, the SPLC condemned that attack as well, but now we have yet another example of Charlie Kirk, who's very prominent in his own right, but also put on the SPLC hate map a few months later, shot, in this case, deadly so, assassinated. And, the SPLC condemns it. I'm sorry, but that is not enough. This is the third in a series. I'm saying the SPLC, if they prove that they oppose political violence, they need to take Turning Point USA off of the hate map immediately. And I've reached out to the SPLC multiple times today, asking them to do this. I have a new article up at the Daily Signal right now calling on them. If they want to put their money where their mouth is, they need to take Turning Point off the map today.
Well, good for you. And not just Turning Point. They need to trash the entire hate map. It is nothing but a political tool, in my opinion, that, as you said, has become an instrument for violence. So, Tyler, let me ask you this. The legacy media has certainly tried to portray political violence, let's put it that way, as a problem from both the left and the right. Okay, there may be some justification to that, but it's certainly not a 50-50 split, is it?
There are a few situations where Democrats have been attacked. Most notably, I think it's important to note the Minnesota former House Speaker. And, our hearts go out to her family as well as to the family of Charlie Kirk, especially in the case of Charlie Kirk, truly horrific. But I have another story up on the Daily Signal about this. There have been multiple attacks on Republicans and conservatives in the past few years. I mean, Rand Paul got attacked. It does not look like that was politically motivated, but he was still, his ribs were broken. He is facing pneumonia. There was state legislator who was running for office, and the month before his election, he got sucker punched.
Tyler, less than a minute left. So continue.
I think it's important to say here that you're absolutely right. The SPLC has done so much harm to so many good conservative and Christian organizations. It needs to take far more of them off that hate map than just Turning Point. The reason I'm saying they should take Turning Point off is because in this particular instance, there was particular violence against the head of Turning Point USA shortly after the SPLC added Turning Point. They need to put their money where their mouth is and take, at the very least, this small step. And you're absolutely right. I mean, Family Research Council, Alliance Defending Freedom, so many organizations have no business being on any map with the Klan. But if the SPLC wants to prove they oppose political violence, take Turning Point off the hate map today.
Tyler O'Neill, senior editor at the Daily Signal, thank you so much for joining us today on Washington Watch.